Welcome to House Talk, with videos that'll provide maintenance tips unique to Trilogy at Vistancia Homes. With your host, Doug Bowman. Hello and welcome, and today we're going to be talking about irrigation repairs, both poly tube repairs and also PVC repairs. How many times have you walked down the street and seen water coming up out of the ground? Well, it's becoming more commonplace nowadays as our irrigation system age, and we're going to be talking about the repairs that you can make as an owner to be able to get those repaired and not have to call a landscaper every time.
The material that you see in front of you is about $30 worth of material from Home Depot. The white pipe and the black pipe repair tubing, those are under $2 a piece. The fittings, the black and white fittings that are in the middle, each of those is in the range of 40 cents to about 60 cents. And then the two PVC specialty fittings in the front are under $5. So everything that you have in front of you doesn't even cost $30, and it can do about 7 or 8 repairs. The plastic pipe can be cut with numerous tools around the house. You can use a straight edge, a shearer, or they've got tools that are specifically made for poly pipe and PVC pipe. That's the blue one down on the left. Okay, we're going to do a poly pipe tube repair. Let's assume that this X is the spot where the leak occurred. We're going to take one of these plastic couplings that you can get at the hardware store. Different manufacturers have different markings, but they're exactly the same fitting at both ends, so don't be misled. You could put it in one way or the other. So as I said, let's assume that this X is the mark. We want to make sure that we get about 3/4 of an inch or more of penetration into here once we cut this. So let's make a marking where the end of the pipe is going to be on both sides. And then we'll make a marking about 3/4 of the way in, which is where we'll actually cut the pipe. I'll take my pipe cutter and cut it right on the mark. We'll get rid of the bad piece. Now we're going to slip this over both ends, and we've got some flexibility in these pipes that supports this insulation. But here's a trick that you can do. Take some water and just go over the ends of the pipe. Just run that around. That'll help it slip on a lot easier. So we want to slip it on until we get to the markings that we originally had. So I'll slip this side over to right there, and then bend it up slightly and slip this side on until we get the pipe in there. There we are. So we've got about 3/4 of an inch of tube inside, with the actual seal occurring about 1/4 of an inch in. That'll make a good seal. Once the water pressure is returned and this tube swells a little bit, that'll be even a tighter seal inside the coupling. Now we're going to do a much larger tube repair. This is about an 8-inch repair, but this could be anywhere from 1 foot to 2 foot to 3 feet, depending on what kind of damage that you've got. I strongly recommend that you use these larger and thicker rubber hoses for these repairs, because you can basically tie these in a knot and they won't bind and they won't buckle like some of the other plastic ones. I've already cut these to size. I still want to make sure that I get the markings on here for my, so I know how much I want to insert these. Get this last one in there. Okay, so I'm going to start with the repairs on the rubber pipe. We'll put a little water on here, as we talked about earlier. Make them slide on a lot easier. There's my first one. There's the second one. All right, looking pretty good there. So apply a little bit more water to the old pipe. Hold this in place, try to minimize the amount of stress on this older pipe. There we go. This last one is always the toughest. There we go. A little bit more. There we go. All right. So that's more than enough that's in there. As I said before, you only need 1/4 inch. of penetration to make that good seal in there, and we've got a good 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch in all 4 of these joints right here. And as I said, once this line gets pressurized and this tube swells up, that seal will become even tighter. So far we've only been using couplings on these tube repairs, but there's all sorts of options. You can buy tees in case you add a service or you add a tree and you want to tie into an existing line to be able to irrigate that tree. You've got tees, or if you've got a tree that you've removed and you want to dead end that section of pipe, you can buy these couplings that actually have disconnects at the other end, and they'll just close off just like a hose fitting. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to these plastic couplings. All right, we're going to spend a little time talking about the pieces that are required for 1/4 inch piping, which is really what goes from these main tubes to the shrubs and to the trees that you have. There's all sorts of different irrigation drippers and bubblers that are available out there. 1 gallon an hour, 2 gallons an hour, 4 gallons an hour, 10 gallons an hour, depending on the size of the bush and the size, how long you do it, and what time of season it is. There's all sorts of variables that go into what your settings are going to be. But for this demonstration, I want to show you a couple things. One is probably the most useful tool is this guy here. And this is just a piece, they call it a piercer. It's about 89 cents at the hardware store. And what it's used for is to be able to, if you want to add a line to an existing tube, you can just come to it, get your hands behind it and give it a good press, and you'll poke a hole right into it. And that's what these fittings can slide right into and make up the different configurations. So for this example, what I want to do is I want to take a 90-degree fitting, and I'm just going to insert that into this tube, like so. Get that in there good. Now, when the pressure comes back, there it is. When this tube is pressurized, when the irrigation system runs, this will be forced out, and there will actually be a better seal in here than there is when you're just putting it in without any water pressure on it. So here's a tube that's got a actual damaged piece to it. So if I found that out in the yard, I would cut that piece off, cut the other side off, get rid of that. There's a coupling that is available. Just take the coupling, you could slip it in one end till it seats itself, turn it around, take the other end, slide that in there, and there you've got a good patch repair for a damaged piece of 1/4 inch tubing. For this particular one, we're going to take this 90-degree fitting that I just installed, spin that around. We're going to install this 1/4 inch tubing as if we're trying to feed a new shrub. Get that on there. There we go, that's fully seated now. And then the last thing I'm going to add is one of my emitters. This is a 2 gallon per hour emitter, and it's got the same type of pierce fitting, and you can just hold that, slide that up onto here, twist it back and forth, and there you go. That's pretty much all that's required to go from the tube to the shrub. And one other piece I would add is if you're going to remove a piece like this, or if you want to dead end a line, say you've got a line that's feeding the shrub, and the shrub, you want to take it out, what do you do with it? Well, you can just come in here, cut this piece, because we're assuming that just this much is actually showing coming out of the rocks and the rest of this is buried. But you can take a plug. They have plugs that don't allow any flow through them, and you can come and put the plug in, and there will not be any flow through there at all. So those are some of the more commonly used pieces for 1/4 inch tubing. It's very easy to install, and once the line pressurizes, they really tighten up really good. The PVC can be cut with either a PVC cutter or hand tools around the house. The PVC tool is actually pretty easy. You just take it, get it on the spot that you want, squeeze down, and it makes a nice clean cut. Cementing PVC is pretty easy, although it can be pretty messy. First step is to take a purple primer and clean the joints that are going to be adhered to, and make sure that you get a good seal and cleanliness. followed by the adhesive on the same joints. I'll just do one side on this coupling here, then also on the pipe. Then once you apply that, you take the two joints, put them on, rotate them in place, make sure that you get a good mixture, and just hold them for a few seconds, and within about 15 seconds you'll have a good joint. This PVC repair uses a coupling. This coupling comes with a couple bushings and two end caps. And as long as you've got a little bit of play in your line, this is a great fix because you can just slip it right over the hazard or the brake, slide it down, back over the other side, and then just take the two end pieces and tie them back together. There's one side, then the other side. There we go. And those bushings tighten up and you get a nice waterproof fix. Now this PVC repair is using a slide fitting. A slide fitting has two O-rings on a shaft that goes back and forth, fits inside, and you can see how it expands back and forth like this. You need a much bigger opening to be able to use this, and this is good when you've got rigid, the pipe is buried in the ground and you really can't move it around. So it starts off with a coupling being put on the end. That would be glued obviously, but for demonstration purposes I'm leaving it off. There's a shark tooth bite at the end, so this end will fit. Let me squeeze this down. This will fit over the end like so. There, that'll never come off now. And then the coupling, you put some glue around here, glue around the coupling side here, and it stretches out over the end. Adhere that, so you've got a glued connection here, a glued connection here, a shark tooth compression fitting here, and then this fitting is the last. It comes together, squeezes down on that shaft, tightens up on those O-rings, and now you've got a nice repair for an installation where you can't move the pipes because they're buried in place. This fitting is less than $5. This PVC fix uses four 90-degree fittings and 3 small couplings to create kind of a loop that, while not the best fix, it does provide some restriction to flow, but it's probably the cheapest fix out there for a very tight quarters where pipes can't move laterally. You can see how we've used the 4 90-degree pieces and coupled them together with small pieces of PVC to create this loop. Keep in mind that all of these joints would have the purple cleaner and primer and the adhesive in here to make these watertight joints. Like I said, this is a easy fix, a cheap fix for when the two pipes can't move laterally to be able to put in other fixes, but this is a good repair that's on the spot, and as I said, it works in holes that are very tight to get into.
Here's some of the pros and cons related to irrigation repairs. Materials are cheap. It is easy to do, but sometimes there may be some digging required. You save water, you save on labor costs, and you can make the repairs immediately. The cons are that sometimes you need some specialty tools, and you still need somebody to repair your irrigation leaks while you're away.
If you like this video, you may like these other videos I've done, specifically about Trilogy Homes.